If you're a man dealing with pelvic pressure, prostate discomfort, or urinary changes, the answer may not be another antibiotic.
Right, and that's a realization that catches a lot of guys off guard.
It really does. Welcome to our deep dive, everyone. Our mission today is to completely demystify men's pelvic comfort. We are taking a really hard look at the realities of prostatitis, specifically a condition called chronic pelvic pain syndrome, or CPPS.
Exactly.
And we're exploring the specific clinical research behind a targeted formulation from Sunn Biolabs called Prosturol.
But, before we really get into the mechanics of all this, let's establish our baseline right up front. We are here to provide evidence-based education on dietary supplements and routine support.
Important distinction.
Right. We are not here to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. The goal is just to break down the science of prostate and pelvic health so you, the listener, can make highly informed decisions about your daily routine.
I am so glad we're tackling this, honestly, because if you're listening to this right now, chances are you, or maybe a man in your life, might be suffering in total silence.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly common.
Yeah, so many men hit their 40s or 50s, they start experiencing this weird pelvic pressure or urinary changes, and they just, accept it as some inevitable penalty of getting older.
You really do.
They stop taking long road trips. They start quietly mapping out every bathroom in the grocery store. Consider this deep dive your personalized, research-backed field guide out of that cycle.
Because the isolation around this is profound, mostly because it's a very common yet rarely discussed shift in a man's life. But to understand how to support the body here, we have to look closely at the underlying plumbing.
Right, the plumbing. Because you go from never thinking about your prostate in your 30s to suddenly having it dictate your entire schedule in your 50s.
Yeah, and the question is why?
Well, we don't need a basic biology lesson on what the prostate is. Most guys know it's a walnut-sized gland involved in reproduction. But the issue isn't just what it does.
No, it's where it lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Looking at the anatomical diagrams in these sources, it is purely a geography problem.
The geography is the entire issue. The prostate sits right below the bladder, but it doesn't just sit next to the urethra, the tube that carries urine out of the body.
Right.
It completely wraps around the upper portion of the urethra. Because of that structural reality, even a microscopic change in the prostate directly impacts your urinary flow.
So any slight swelling.
Any slight swelling, a bit of localized inflammation, or even tension in the surrounding pelvic tissue, it translates immediately to pressure on that tube.
I'm picturing like a garden hose.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, so the urethra is the hose, and the prostate is a hand gripping it. If the hand just rests there, the water flows perfectly fine.
Naturally, yeah.
But if that hand gets inflamed and swells, or the muscles just tighten up, it squeezes the hose. And the flow out the other end is totally compromised.
And because of that grip on the hose, the prostate rarely shouts when it first comes under stress. I always say it whispers.
Oh, wow. It whispers.
Yeah, the early signs are incredibly subtle. You might just notice a slight hesitancy, like standing there for a few extra seconds waiting for the stream to begin.
Right, or the flow becomes noticeably weaker.
Exactly, or you get that really frustrating, lingering sensation that the bladder didn't fully empty.
Which eventually leads to the nighttime routine, right? Waking up once, then twice, then 3 times a night just to use the bathroom.
Roughly half of men over 50 experience these exact shifts. But when a guy finally decides the symptoms are disruptive enough to actually go schedule a doctor's appointment.
Which takes a lot for some guys to do.
It does. But when they do, the traditional medical reflex is to assume there's an active bacterial infection causing that swelling or pressure.
So, okay, the hose is kinked, you go to the doctor, and you leave with a prescription for a heavy-duty antibiotic.
Very often, yes.
But I'm looking at the clinical outcomes in our sources here, and a massive percentage of men take that full round of antibiotics and literally nothing changes.
Nothing at all.
They go back, get a different antibiotic, take that, and the symptoms still persist. If they're aggressively treating an infection, why isn't the pressure going away?
Because in the vast majority of these cases, there is no bacterial infection to treat.
Wait, really? No bacteria at all?
Right. The medical community is looking at a condition classified by the National Institutes of Health as Category 3 prostatitis. It's more commonly referred to as chronic pelvic pain syndrome, or CPPS.
CPPS, got it.
And it affects roughly 8% of adult men. Its defining hallmark characteristic is that it is non-bacterial.
I had to pause on that. If urologists know that CPPS is non-bacterial, Why are guys constantly getting prescribed these aggressive fluoroquinolone antibiotics like ciprofloxacin or levofloxacin?
It's a great question.
I mean, these drugs completely nuke your gut microbiome. Why throw them at a non-bacterial problem?
It's a legacy reflex in clinical practice. For decades, any male pelvic pain or urinary urgency was just blanketly treated as an infection. But the modern clinical evidence strongly contradicts that approach.
So the science has moved on, but the habit hasn't.
Exactly. Landmark NIH-funded trials have fundamentally changed how researchers view this. There's a major study by Nickel and his colleagues in 2003, and they tracked men with CPPS who were given 6 weeks of levofloxacin.
And what happened?
The data revealed the antibiotic didn't perform significantly better than a placebo in improving their symptoms.
Wow.
Yeah, and another massive trial the following year by Alexander found the exact same lack of efficacy with ciprofloxacin.
Think about the physical toll of that.
Yeah.
6 weeks of severe gut disruption, all for an outcome that is statistically no better than taking a sugar pill.
The urology field recognizes this now, which is why the treatment paradigm is finally shifting toward a multimodal approach. It's called the UP8T phenotyping system.
UP.
Leading urologists use UPOINT to categorize the specific domains of a patient's pelvic discomfort, rather than just guessing.
Let me guess, it's an acronym.
It is. It stands for urinary symptoms, psychosocial factors, organ-specific issues, infection, neurologic tension, and tenderness of the pelvic muscles.
Wait, look at the second letter in that acronym. Psychosocial. Are urologists seriously looking at a man's mental state or, like, psychological stress to treat a physical urinary flow problem?
They absolutely are, and we will get into the profound connection between stress and the pelvic floor a little later because it is a critical piece of the puzzle.
Okay, I'm definitely keeping a pin in that.
But the UPINT system forces a doctor to map out exactly where the dysfunction is coming from. If the problem isn't the infection domain, they stop throwing antibiotics at it.
Right, which makes total sense.
Instead, they pivot to the organ-specific domain. This is where evidence-based phytotherapy, using plant-based natural compounds to modulate inflammation and support the prostate natively, becomes the frontline strategy.
Which bridges us directly to how a guy actually targets that organ-specific domain on his own. Because if antibiotics are off the table for CPPS, what replaces them?
Right, exactly.
And I think this is the core of Sunn Biolabs' Prosturol formula, isn't it?
It is. When you review the clinical data for non-bacterial prostate comfort, one specific plant bioflavonoid stands out far above the rest, and that is quercetin.
Quercetin.
Yes. It's naturally found in foods like capers, onions, and apples, and it serves as the anchor ingredient in Prosturol.
Now, quercetin gets a lot of hype in the general wellness and longevity space. I see it everywhere. But the clinical trials here show it having a very specific application for the prostate.
A highly specific application. The foundational evidence comes from a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial published by researchers at UCLA back in 1999.
Oh, so they've been studying this for a while.
Oh, yeah. They took men actively dealing with NIH Category 3 chronic prostatitis, so CPPS, and gave them 500 milligrams of quercetin twice daily for a month.
And what were the results?
The men in the quercetin group demonstrated significantly greater improvement in their symptom scores compared to the men taking a placebo.
But what is the actual mechanism there? If there's no bacteria for the quercetin to fight, what is it doing to the prostate tissue to relieve that pressure on the urethra?
It acts on the body's inflammatory signaling pathways, specifically targeting human mast cells.
Mast cells. Remind me how those work.
Think of mast cells as the body's localized alarm system. In the pathophysiology of CPPS, these mast cells essentially get stuck in the on position, constantly releasing inflammatory mediators.
So the alarm is just ringing nonstop.
Exactly. These chemicals flood the localized tissue, causing the prostate to swell and clamp down on the urethra. Quercetin inhibits the release of those inflammatory mediators.
Oh, I see.
It turns down the volume on the local alarm system, allowing the tissue to calm down.
Okay, but I'm looking at this quercetin data, and there's a huge catch here. The clinical trial results are impressive, but if I just go to a health food store and buy a tub of standard quercetin powder, my body isn't going to absorb it right.
That is the main issue, yes.
It has notoriously terrible oral bioavailability. Taking pure quercetin is like having $1 million winning lottery ticket, but no gas in your car to drive to the bank to cash it. The body just passes it right through.
That raw bioavailability is the primary hurdle that causes standard quercetin supplements to fail in real-world applications. It's just a highly unstable compound in the gut.
So how does Prosturol get around that?
To solve the absorption problem, the Prosturol formulation utilizes a pharmaceutical-grade approach by pairing the quercetin with two highly specific proteolytic enzymes.
Proteolytic meaning enzymes that break down proteins, right?
Precisely. Specifically, bromelain, which is derived from pineapple stems, and papain, which is extracted from papaya. When quercetin is co-administered with these proteolytic enzymes, it fundamentally changes how the body processes the bioflavonoid. The enzymes break down the barriers to absorption, effectively shuttling the quercetin into the bloodstream where it can actually reach the prostate tissue.
So the enzymes are the gas in the car. They make sure the quercetin actually arrives at the destination.
They do, but it is a dual-action benefit. Bromelain and papain aren't merely delivery vehicles. They possess their own heavily documented properties.
What else do they do?
Well, bromelain has been widely studied for its anti-edematous effects, meaning it actively reduces swelling and fluid retention in tissues. So it's fighting the same exact battle as the quercetin.
And the papain addresses another huge issue for guys dealing with this. Men suffering from chronic pelvic discomfort are often highly sensitive to supplements.
Extremely sensitive.
You look at generic prostate pills, and they're loaded with harsh excipients or highly acidic bases that cause brutal heartburn or stomach upset. And if a guy is already in pelvic distress, the last thing he needs is a GI tract on fire.
Exactly. And papain has a very long traditional history of use as a soothing digestive enzyme. By combining the quercetin with these specific proteolytic enzymes and housing them in a clean, non-acidic hypromellus capsule, the formulation becomes exceptionally gentle.
It just removes the GI stress from the equation entirely.
Right. On sensitive digestive systems, it's a game changer.
Okay, so the quercetin and the enzymes are handling the inflammatory pathways, putting out the fire and making sure the nutrients are absorbed.
Yeah.
But that only addresses the acute swelling.
True.
What about the prostate's native environment? How do you rebuild the structural health of the organ so it can defend itself natively?
That requires looking at the mineral composition of a healthy prostate gland, and the most critical element there is zinc.
Zinc.
Yes. The prostate is one of the most zinc-concentrated tissues in the entire human body. It hoards zinc at levels far exceeding almost any other soft tissue.
Why does it need so much zinc just sitting in the tissue?
Well, in the 1970s, researchers identified that zinc acts as a prostatic antibacterial factor. It's a foundational component of the prostate's innate localized defense system.
Okay, so it's a shield.
Yes. And the critical finding for men with CPPS is that when researchers test the seminal fluid of men suffering from chronic prostatitis, their zinc levels are significantly depleted compared to healthy men.
Oh, wow. So it's essentially a depleted battery.
That's a perfect analogy.
The prostate relies on this massive reservoir of zinc to defend itself and maintain cellular health. When those zinc levels drop, the defense grid powers down, leaving the tissue vulnerable to chronic inflammation and dysfunction. You have to recharge that battery to restore the baseline.
Recharging the local environment is exactly the goal here. If the tissue is depleted, you need to restore that specific mineral baseline. Prosturol includes zinc in the form of zinc gluconate, which is highly bioavailable, specifically to help maintain the mineral concentration the prostate naturally requires to function.
Okay, so zinc recharges the battery and quercetin puts out the fire. But, and I know guys are thinking this, if I walk into any pharmacy, the entire men's health aisle is just a solid wall of saw palmetto.
Oh, it's in everything.
It really is.
Yeah.
Is that just marketing, or does it actually play a mechanical role in this specific organ-specific strategy?
Saw palmetto has decades of traditional and clinical use for structural prostate tissue support. Now, it is most frequently studied in the context of benign prostatic hypoplasia, or BPH.
Which is an enlargement of the prostate.
Correct. And BPH is a different physiological condition than CPPS. However, saw palmetto is included in the Prosturol formulation because of its well-documented role in modulating an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase.
What does 5-alpha reductase actually do?
It's the enzyme responsible for converting testosterone into dihydrotestosterone, or DHT.
Okay.
DHT is a potent androgen that binds to receptors in the prostate and stimulates cellular growth. By modulating that enzyme, saw palmetto helps regulate that growth signaling, providing foundational structural support to the prostate cells.
So it rounds out the formula by covering the broader long-term structural health of the gland.
Exactly.
Now, there's one more ingredient here that initially caught me off guard, and that's cranberry.
Cranberry fruit extract. And to be incredibly clear on this point, in the context of this formulation, we are talking strictly about male urinary tract structural support.
Right.
Cranberry has a highly characterized mechanical action in the body. It contains dense concentrations of compounds called A-type proanthocyanidins.
Okay, you're going to have to translate A-type proanthocyanidins into plain English for us.
Fair enough. In plain English, these compounds seek out the specific microscopic hooks that E. coli bacteria use to latch onto the walls of the male urinary tract.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, cranberry extract actively blunts those hooks. If the bacteria cannot grip the bladder wall or the urethra, they cannot adhere and set up camp. They simply get flushed out with normal urination.
Oh, I get it. It's making the walls of the male urinary tract too slippery for the bacteria to grab onto. It's pure structural defense for the physical pathway.
It ensures that the entire male urinary environment, from the bladder through the prostate and out the urethra, is structurally supported.
The synergy here is fascinating. The quercetin and enzymes calm the inflammatory mast cells, the zinc recharges the native cellular defenses, and the salt palmetto and cranberry physically support the structure of the prostate and the urinary tract.
It's a very comprehensive approach to the U-pointy organ-specific domain.
But we have to address the elephant in the room here. A guy cannot just take a targeted supplement and expect it to magically fix a terrible daily routine.
Absolutely not. A supplement like Prosturol is a targeted tool, but it must exist within a broader lifestyle strategy. If a man is engaging in daily habits that actively irritate his bladder and inflame his prostate, a daily capsule can only do so much heavy lifting.
The mechanical habits of daily life dictate a huge portion of pelvic comfort.
They dictate almost all of it.
So let's map out those mechanical habits. How do these ingredients fit into the broader lifestyle changes a man needs to implement to get his bathroom routine back under his control?
The most immediate, impactful change is tapering hydration before bed.
Tapering hydration.
Yes, you absolutely need steady hydration throughout the day to keep the kidneys flushing and support urinary tract function. But the kidneys take time to process fluid.
Right, they aren't instant.
So if a man realizes at 8 p.m. that he hasn't drank enough water all day and he just chugs 40 ounces right before bed, the kidneys are going to process that fluid right when he's trying to hit deep sleep.
Which means the bladder fills, the pressure hits the prostate, and he wakes up.
Exactly. You need consistent intake during daylight hours and a hard taper in the evening.
What about dietary triggers? If quercetin is fighting inflammation, what is actively causing it through our diet?
Diet dictates the inflammatory baseline of the pelvis. Consuming foods rich in lycopene, which is heavily concentrated in cooked tomatoes, along with healthy fats and cruciferous vegetables, provides native cellular support.
Nice.
But just as important is removing the active irritants. Caffeine and alcohol are massive culprits.
The two things guys love most.
Unfortunately, yes. They are natural diuretics, meaning they force the body to produce more urine, but they also chemically irritate the lining of the bladder. For a man with a sensitive prostate, a single strong cup of coffee can dramatically spike his urinary urgency.
Let's loop back to the U-10L acronym from earlier, specifically the psychosocial and neurologic tension domains. In reading the research for this deep dive, the connection between chronic stress and the pelvic floor absolutely fascinated me.
It's a huge piece of the puzzle.
We all intuitively know that when work gets stressful, we clench our jaws or our shoulders climb up to our ears. But men subconsciously hold that exact same tension in their pelvic floor.
It is a direct autonomic nervous system response. When a man is under chronic psychological or emotional stress, his body prepares for a fight-or-flight scenario. Part of that physiological response is the tightening of the core and pelvic floor muscles.
Just clenching up.
Over time, that chronic muscle tension completely mimics and exacerbates the symptoms of CPPS. Those tight pelvic muscles squeeze the urethra from the outside, causing pain, severe urgency, and restricted flow, even if the prostate itself is perfectly healthy.
So it's essentially a tension headache, but located entirely in the pelvis.
That is exactly how you should think about it. And it creates a brutal feedback loop. The tension causes urinary pain and frequency, which causes the man more anxiety and stress, which makes him clench the pelvic floor even tighter.
Man, that sounds awful. How do you break it?
Breaking that loop requires active stress management, stretching, and moderate movement to physically force those muscles to relax.
So if a guy is listening to this right now and he is checking every box, he has the weak flow, the nighttime waking, the pressure, the stress, what is the actionable playbook? Where does he actually start today?
Step 1 is tracking your symptoms to establish an objective baseline. You cannot manage what you do not measure. Keep a simple log. Note how many times you actually wake up at night.
Just write it down.
Exactly. Track if a second cup of coffee makes the urgency worse that afternoon. Write it down. Step 2 is taking that data to a urologist.
And the doctor visit is where so many guys fail. You get a 15-minute annual physical, you feel awkward bringing up urinary hesitation, so you just downplay the symptoms to get out of the office faster.
That's why you have to bring written questions to force the conversation. Ask the doctor directly, what does a normal prostate exam look like for a man my age?
Be direct.
Yes. Say, I'm noticing these specific changes in my urinary flow. Are these within a normal baseline, or do we need to run diagnostics? And bring up the targeted support you intend to use. Tell them, I'm looking at a daily support formulation utilizing quercetin and zinc. Are there any contraindications with my current health profile?
It changes the entire dynamic.
Yeah.
You stop being a passive patient waiting for a generic antibiotic, and you become the project manager of your own pelvic health.
Beautifully said.
Let's summarize our mission here today. If you are over 40, experiencing pelvic pressure, urinary hesitation, or waking up constantly, that is not just part of getting older that you have to silently endure.
Not at all.
And relying endlessly on antibiotics when there's no actual infection is not the only path forward.
Managing male prostate health requires consistency above all else. It demands a multimodal approach. You have to pair lifestyle awareness, hydration, tapering, identifying dietary irritants, and managing pelvic floor tension with open, proactive conversations with a urologist.
Right.
And you anchor that daily routine with targeted, evidence-based nutritional support like Prosturol, designed specifically to address the unique inflammatory and structural realities of the male pelvic environment.
It really is about taking your power back. But I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder today, building on that autonomic nervous system connection we just talked about.
Oh, sure.
If our pelvic floor muscles instinctively hold on to our modern psychological stress just as tightly as our jaws and our shoulders do, well, how much of our physical urinary discomfort isn't a mechanical failure at all, but rather just our unmanaged anxiety manifesting quietly in the body?
It forces us to entirely reevaluate the mind-body connection in men's health.
Something to seriously think about the next time you feel that pressure. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.